She wrote the book on human-centered marketing and probably sang the audiobook. It's Event About It with Ashley Faus. Hey everybody, welcome back to Event About It. I'm your host, Megan Martin, and our guest this week is best known for lifecycle marketing that sticks and musical numbers that slay. Her new book, Human-Centered Marketing, is the standing ovation your campaign has been waiting for. Welcome to the studio, Ashley.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love that blend of the personal and professional. That I might have to steal that and be like, someone once said my life cycle marketing is the standing, or my book is the standing ovation that campaigns need.
I mean, we all need it. I am thrilled to read it. I can't wait to get into it. And we're going to talk even more about it through the episode and in the after show. But give us maybe a sneak peek about the book, because one of the things you mentioned to me that your superpower is taking the customer journey across multiple touch points and metrics, which is very human centered. It's not really thinking about the company and how to get the customer in there. It's looking at what the customer's doing and fitting the product or your company or organization into it. And the world is getting more and more complicated by the day. Everything is multi-touch. Everything is omni-channel now. One size definitely does not fit all anymore. So kind of walk us through human-centered marketing.
Sure. So one of the central themes in the book is this idea of trust. And particularly in the age of AI, we have the ability to create more and faster, but are we actually creating better? And when we think about what that better word means, are we doing things that serve the humans behind the screen, or are we primarily serving tools, dashboards, technology, spreadsheets, etc.? And so I introduced 3 core frameworks and then a variety of real-world examples and tactical advice to really build that trust and long-term affinity that eventually does lead to that short-term conversion. So what you mentioned in terms of thinking omni-channel and multiple touch points, my playground framework really speaks to that. And instead of mapping the journey to a linear funnel of awareness, consideration, purchase, and then cross-sell, upsell, retention phases.
Traditional marketing
Yeah,
funnel.
traditional
I don't
marketing
know that it
funnel.
exists anymore. I think we still
No.
use it a lot and they're still good in it, but man, the world has gotten complicated when it comes to marketing.
Exactly. And the funnel is more of a retrospective measurement tool than a forward-looking strategy tool. And so
I would agree.
as we think about designing a journey that's so smart and so seamless and so impactful that we can match whatever journey the audience chooses. They can go up, down, sideways. They can use content the wrong way. And I do include a variety of examples in the book around events and how you connect that in-person or offline experience to that digital or online experience so that you're not alienating either of your audiences. And it's a proper connection throughout the marketing mix, not just kind of this one-off thing that sits in a silo.
So many times we get lost in the events world of these singular moments and forget that they are part of a longer journey. And we also think about events for webinars sometimes don't get considered as events, which they absolutely are, and they're part of that journey. I mean, you have a content journey, you have an events journey, there's all these, like we said, multi-touch point, omni-channel, and events are woven through all of that. And the beauty of events for me, and I think where so many planners get lost, is they're content powerhouses. I mean, the amount of content that comes out of an event that can be repurposed from an event is massive. And I think so many people forget about it. As soon as the event is done, they're moving on, and they record all these sessions and then throw the recording on the website. And they're go back and watch it. No one does. But if you parse it out, I mean, my gosh, 1-2 day event probably would have a year's worth of content that you could repurpose. My wheels are spinning of how much you can do with it. And I just love the human-centered approach to that and being able to repurpose it. And your frameworks are incredible. So I think a lot of people will get use out of the book.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, speaking of content, we're going to play a fun game called Reuse It or Lose It. This is the game where we're going to separate the lifecycle legends from the content clutter. I'm going to throw out some event content moments and you tell us, is it marketing goldmine worth repurposing or a hot mess headed straight to the recycle bin? First one, a keynote speaker sharing a killer one-liner that gets a standing ovation.
I mean, of course you got to reuse that. And I think it's more than just clip that 10-second or 15-second thing and put it on LinkedIn and call it a day. Like, you can use that for quote graphics. You can use it as an embed in a blog post. You can turn it into a little audiogram for Reels or on TikTok. So yeah, 100%.
I mean, can you imagine your like CEO or keynote speaker as a GIF, whatever people call it these days, that you could use like on Instagram or, I mean, that would be hilarious. I could just see our CEO laughing hysterically at that. Okay, a 45-minute breakout session with 93 slides and no video recording.
I mean, I actually think there are ways to potentially reuse that, but what you just described as is like, no, that belongs in person. It can stay in the event. Depending on the nature of the slides, I might veer into the reuse it, but in a completely different format and a completely different way than saying, oh, just throw the slide deck on SlideShare. Like, we're not doing that.
Yeah, agreed. All right, attendee testimonials captured on site, but it has some bad audio, but great emotion.
There's ways to do it. You could potentially ask if they would be willing to re-record the voiceover, and then that way you could just use the event and the emotions as B-roll. Alternatively, you could just pull the quote and put it in as just the words. You could also flip it into something that's like real, scenes from the real world, and you could still use it. I think it depends on how bad the audio is. Like, you can't hear anything at all. All right, we're going to have to reimagine it. But oh, it's just not the crispest, or there's some background noise of the show floor. We might be able to make that work.
Agreed. And there's so many tools now that can enhance audio and make it better. And like, I think the other thing too, people sometimes forget content. A lot of people think content has to be so buttoned up and like perfect. I think sometimes the raw, authentic with the background noise, like we know you're on a trade show floor. We know you're in the middle of a busy hallway. Like, it's okay if it's not like the cleanest, crispest, like perfectly produced video. Like, I think some people just want real. A panel that name drops your product but never explains what it does.
Oof, panels are tough. I struggle. I, in general, don't like panels as a format at all, for in-person or on demand. And then I find that it's really hard to repurpose them. So that's the one where like I might actually say, just don't reuse it, just lose it.
Live poll results that surprise everyone in the room.
Depends on how much context it requires to understand the live poll. Again, it's possible, like maybe you turn it into, I say GIF, maybe turn it into a GIF of like with the question and then the answer or whatever. But showing it out of context is really hard. And also if the audience is too small, if it's like, we asked 10 people in the room and you're like, okay, just because 90% of 10 people said this, like that's only 9 people. That's kind of not a lot. So that one I'm going to have to go with maybe if I know what the context is and we can add context, but ripped straight out
and
of context.
And the sample size is good enough. Like, that's always been my question on shows like Family Feud. And they're like, the majority of people, and be like, did you just ask your family? Because
right? Like how big is this majority?
Right. I love that. Okay, backstage interviews with speakers answering what's one thing you'd change about your industry.
Oh, 100%. Reuse that everywhere in like all the formats.
Do you advise planners to do backstage interviews with speakers?
I think it's good. It has to be done in the right way. So I've seen a few where it's too staged or like it doesn't acknowledge that they're doing a backstage interview. And it's almost like, oh my gosh, it's time for your keynote, but you're running late. It's like, really? That
probably not like the time to distract your keynote.
Or so I think as long as you acknowledge that you're backstage, it's very clear you're trying to capture this, you're not interfering with the rest of the program, I do think it's worth capturing that backstage energy. And especially if the person has a strong personal brand and they are prolific on their personal profiles on social media, that BTS stuff of like, I was getting ready to go on stage at this event. Like, here's 5 quick thoughts that the organizer asked me. That I think plays really well on individual channels as well as the brand channel.
Agreed, but it also depends on the speakers. Like I have found that not every speaker translate to video well or can do things on the fly. Like some speakers are very buttoned up and have their message and they kind of stick to it. A couple more. A sizzle reel that only shows logos and hype shots.
I tend to say no. The only place that's useful is basically to drive event registration of like looking for an energetic event, here you go. But it's just, those just don't tend to play very well. And they also feel a little like, they feel a little try hard to me, where it's like, we're the coolest conference ever. And it's like, you're a B2B data security conference. Like,
I mean, and a hype reel, anybody can make a hype reel seem cool and
yeah,
great. Like a good editor can make anything seem cool.
if we're saying reuse it, like, no, it's kind of just a hype reel to drive registration, sort of, and that's it.
A white paper written based on your CEO's fireside chat.
That, it depends on whether or not the content of the fireside chat was good. If you have garbage in, you will have garbage out. So I think written versions of those conversations can be really great, assuming that the conversation itself was really great.
Oh, I love that context. Okay, last two. An on-site activation that got 0 signups but 5 great photos.
I really struggle with on-site activations because, like, what are they meant to do if you share them online? Is it meant to create FOMO? Cool, but if somebody has to wait a year, like, we did this great on-site activation, don't you wish you could have seen it? And it's like, join us next year, dude. I am not waiting 12 months to come do whatever you did. That one I would almost say like is maybe better for the attendees if they want to share, you know, hey, I'm here and I enjoyed this, or oh my gosh, you know, this company threw a great event. But yeah, I struggle with that because it's just unclear what the purpose of it is. And the time horizon just seems quite long given the ability to actually get value from it.
Yeah, that's like a moment repurpose, right? Like we're already at the event, you're taking pictures, you're trying to highlight what you're doing, but you wouldn't repurpose it in another format. Like you said, the timeline would just be too long for that. Okay, last one. A spicy Q&A moment where an attendee challenges the speaker's data.
Depends on what the outcome of the question is.
The spicy question.
The spicy question, exactly. Like, does the speaker respond effectively? And effectively might be that they add additional context that shows that the data is accurate for, you know, the original question. Do they stumble and say like, oh my gosh, you're right, my data's out of date? Or do they just completely freeze? Like, maybe not.
So if it was like healthy banter, like some healthy, you know, agreeing to disagree moments or something like that, as opposed to like, oh no, you're right, I do have bad data.
Yeah. Or like if the methodology is fundamentally flawed and the speaker realizes that on stage, or the speaker gets super defensive and then you put that out into the world and everybody else piles on with like, no, the methodology was flawed or the context is incorrect or it doesn't fundamentally answer the question. So again, my gut says, let's see, but I would be careful.
Thanks for playing Reuse It or Lose It. I think those were some great insights. Definitely all content that we pull from events on a regular basis. So definitely some good nuggets in there. Okay, next segment is one of my favorites. It's time for the vent of the week, my favorite therapy session. This is where we let it all out, event fails, unexpected chaos, and those are you kidding me moments. So let's talk the wild world of events. So what is your event? What frustrates you the most when you think about event marketing?
My current rant is the difference between a user conference and an industry conference. They are not the same. They are measured differently. They attract different audiences. They result in different programming. They result in different post-event distribution, strategy, and measurement. Like a few tells that it might be a user conference. All of the speakers are either customers, employees, or partners in your ecosystem. If everybody is somehow directly connected to your company, might be a user conference. If the bulk of the content is about how to use your products or why to buy your products, probably a user conference.
Or highlighting partners that work within your product.
Exactly. Like if you really can't get value from like 75 to 85% of the content, unless you are considering buying, are actively in a buying process, or you own the products, it's probably a user conference.
I think we have like a funny game we'll have to play after this, like the Jeff Foxworthy games. Like, you might be a user conference if. And I
Yes,
do
yes.
that
And then
all.
I think the third thing is like metrics, right? If you're measuring that event on things like open pipeline, influenced pipeline, expansion, monthly active users, or increased adoption of new features, you're probably a user conference. Again, when all of the CTAs are read the announcement blog, log in to check it out, talk to your sales rep about how to get access, you're probably a user conference. The reason I rant about this is because too often companies want to get boatloads, like, I want to get 20,000 attendees. And it's like, do 20,000 people care about this new feature? No? Well, then why would they come? Or they want to get, tens of millions of views on, YouTube or whatever it is. And it's like, do tens of millions of people care about this? Right. And so you end up with this mismatch in terms of the overall go-to-market plan for that event and how it fits into the rest of the marketing mix. And then your metrics are completely off. The other thing is, if you market it as an industry conference, and let's say you do get 20,000 random attendees, it's going to feel like a sales pitch to them. And it actually breaks that trust, because now I feel like you've bait and switched me. You told me I was going to get, practices or industry trends and insights, or I'm going to improve my skills generally. And now you're talking so much about the product that it just feels like you're trying to pitch me, even if there might be some goodness in that product.
Yeah, you think you're walking in one thing and then you're walking away getting something else. Like you said, you break down that trust. So, okay, let me throw out a couple events and you tell me what you think. And then we'll dive into what an industry conference metric would look like. So, like, Canva Create just wrapped up recently. What would that be?
That to me is a user conference. So
I
they
would
talk a
agree.
lot about their latest product innovations, announcements for products, how to use the products, right? I would say that is definitely more of a user conference.
Yeah, here's one that I think recently, I don't want to say recently, within the few years, from where it started to where it is now, has probably changed, but like HubSpot Inbound.
I would say HubSpot Inbound has actually done a really good job making that shift from primarily a user conference to now an industry conference. One of the tells is the fact that they have a dedicated track for product stuff, but it's one of like 10 different tracks. And so you can attend or speak at that conference without being a customer or without really hearing much or anything about product if you curate your agenda. And there's hundreds of sessions that you can curate an agenda that are not about their product. So I actually think they've done a really good job bridging that gap and shifting from a user conference to an industry conference.
What would their team shift in their metrics? So moving, for example, HubSpot Inbound, going from a user conference to an industry, more thought leadership, small focus on the actual product. What kind of metrics would their team look like, since they're offering a lot of sessions and things and attracting attendees that maybe aren't the traditional marketer or CRM or salespeople?
I think things like, the reach and engagement and first time attendees could be a really interesting metric for them, because it shows that they're reaching that broader audience. Obviously, the fact that it's branded as, HubSpot Inbound, and that this is run by a company that offers a product, there is some element of kind of awareness and affinity in there. But I think, looking more towards the reach, the engagement, first time attendees, looking at the scores for the programming of speaker satisfaction, content satisfaction, and then also I think looking at how many people are mentioning it of an event that they want to attend, or it's an easy business case, it tops the top 10 marketing conferences list, right? So a lot of those metrics that tend to be what are traditionally considered top of funnel metrics, even though I disagree with the funnel in general, but that's what I would think of it more around, those like trust, affinity, reach, engagement, relationship metrics. And then obviously within the track about products, Yes, they can look at how many people attended those sessions. They do badge scans, so I'm sure they've got a whole follow-up program on the back end that is specifically tailored to folks who attend the product-related content.
I mean, I'm sure they were looking at pipeline and sales and things that come out of the program, but it's not the primary function, which would be the primary metrics and KPIs coming out of a user conference versus industry conference. They're looking at influence, impressions, sentiment data more so than how many leads and scans and pipeline accelerations are we getting like from the conference.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. I think a lot of brands go into a user conference thinking it's like the big industry, we're the smartest, fastest thing ever. And really, at the end of the day, I think we all know they're just user conferences. Last up, it's my second favorite part of the show, where we get to talk about a huge success, a total disaster, or pure chaos. It's time to event about it. So you shared a very funny story with me when we were prepping for our podcast today. About the first time you had to sort of plan an event, like very beginning of your career, your very first trade show. Tell us what happened when you had to plan your first program.
So I inherited this, and it was this big checklist of like, make sure you order the booth graphics, make sure you, order all the things. And I didn't know that you literally had to order everything. Like I had only attended one trade show in my life, and I had no idea how any of the stuff ended up there.
Yeah, you just showed up and it was all there. Like you didn't have to do the ordering.
So I get this huge checklist, and on it, it included like order everything for the booth. And then in parentheses, it had like, carpet and like a kiosk and, a screen, a TV screen, and I was electric, like all the things, right? So I go to the event website and it had all these carpet options and like colors. And so I was like, okay, I should get the one that closest matches the brand color, whatever. But then it had the carpet pad. And if you've been, everybody who's listening that's an event planner, the carpet pad makes a difference. If you're a booth person, or if you've ever been to a trade show, sometimes people literally find the booths that have the like 3-inch carpet pad just to give their feet a break. I didn't know you had to order that separately. And so I just ordered the carpet. So we show up to the booth and it's like the thinnest piece of carpet you've ever felt in your entire life. And like spray paint a carpet pattern on it, I guess. So we had no carpet pad, no padding. My poor booth staff, me included, had to stand on basically the hard concrete for 3 days. And it was so bad. And I also didn't totally realize, like, at the time, this was like 15 years ago. So I was wearing heels because I was like, oh, it's a business conference. I have to be in my business clothes. So I was like wearing heels on this no pad booth. And it was so bad. So that was one that like, now I know you literally have to order everything. There's a reason that it's broken out as a separate thing of like, okay, add your carpet pad. I was like, I don't know what this is. We don't need it. And if you have not stood on polished concrete for 3 days straight.
In heels, by the way, like that's the glutton for punishment of the story. Like that's usually how I know it's a younger person's first time at a conference is when you see the stilettos coming out. No, don't get me wrong. I wear heels to conferences all the time because I love them, but I usually have an extra pair of shoes in my bag, and like halfway through the day, I'm switching out.
Yeah, we're like, we're done with this. Yeah.
But also the secret trick, I love that you kind of touched on this because it really does happen. The booths at trade shows that have the really thick padding, that is so nice to stand on. I will find reasons to go stand in their booth and talk to someone. So like trick of the trade, if you want someone to come stand in your booth and captivate an audience, just get really thick carpet padding.
Seriously. And especially if you're in one of the like 40 by 40 booths where you can do a whole custom thing and you've got soft seating and you've got the different kiosks. And if you're smack in the middle of the floor, I can cut diagonally through your booth on the nice padding, like from a location and size standpoint, plus the padding and making a nice diagonal path to cut across to the other side. Like that layout, so many opportunities for like put all of your core messaging along the diagonals where people will cut through to get to the other side of the show floor.
Tricks of the trade. I love it. All trade show people, you just had an extra nugget in here. Well, thanks for eventing about it. So you wrote the book in 6 months. And that's incredible. I don't know any author that turns out a book that quickly. So give us the highlight reel. Where can we buy it? And does this mean there may be future books coming from Ashley Faus?
I'll start with your final question. In theory, I keep saying this is my only book. I have already started to shift my language to say it is my first book. I cannot confirm or deny if there will be future books. I have learned not to say never.
But you're not saying no.
I'm not saying no, but I'm also not saying yes. Let's be clear. I mean, this one's not even out yet. Let's see how things go. But to that end, if you think you would like to see more books from me, help make this one a success. It's available on Amazon. It's available at Barnes & Noble. It's also available on the publisher's website, Kogan Page. And your readers can get 20%, or listeners can get 20% off using the discount code, all caps, Kogan Page 20. I'll send it to you for the show notes as well. But yeah, it is pretty much available wherever you buy books, but Amazon is probably going to get it to you fastest.
Well, that's amazing. And where can people engage with you? Where can we find you? What socials are you on?
I'm on a lot of socials, but the best place to hang out is on LinkedIn. I tend to be there daily in both comments and messages. So I would love for people, if they want to connect on LinkedIn.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining another episode of Event About It, where we turned event mishaps into marketing gold. If you enjoyed the chaos, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs a laugh. And don't forget to head over to eventaboutitpodcast.com. Send us your events and stories to be featured on a future episode. You'll also be able to join the Squared Squad, where you can access bonus content, engage with episode guests, and catch the after show where Ashley and I are going to talk about her new book, Human-Centered Approach as a Business Driver, and what buzzwords need a really long vacation. And until next time, keep growing, keep laughing, and definitely keep eventing about it.